a great head coach.
All right, so there's a definitive statement from the person making the decisions. Jeff Saturday, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm shocked with this vote of confidence. I mean, listen, from a head coaching perspective, your job is to inspire your team or get the right guys to inspire your players, right? Has that happened? I mean, we have a defense that's given up 250 yards rushing 3 different times this year. So what kind of changes are we making? By the way, we have an offense that is last in the league since Dak Prescott was injured. He's an offensive coach, right? Like I'm not really sure what we're talking about that we're going to right the ship. Like, we have to talk about putting the right guys in the right places. The head coach has to hire and put the right guys in positions to make plays. He has not done that. As I look at this football team, if I'm Dak Prescott, I'm asking, why would I want to sign long term here, right? Like you got me some receivers, but where are we at here? He's played it as well as he could. You've seen how important he is to this football team. But as I look at this, my question will be, what changes are you going to make to put this team in the best chance to win in the future? Because right now, hey, look, I don't have the good feeling we're heading in the right direction. I can assure you of that.
Now, Marcus, you made similar remarks to that last week, but there's one thing I saw in the notes this morning that I think is important to bring in as well. Dan Graziano, what can you tell us about the way the Cowboys are looking right now at Zeke Elliott?
Well, they're confused, Greeny, because I think the Cowboys thought that when everything happened with Dak going down and the trouble on the offensive line, that Ezekiel Elliott would be a guy that would elevate his game and play at a level that kind of kept them afloat, and he very much has not. And I know from talking to people there that they're surprised by that. Obviously, he's a little banged up now, but that hasn't been the case all year long, and it's not like he just started playing poorly. When you ask people in that building what's up with Ezekiel Elliott, the response is, he's playing lousy. He's playing like, what Lamar Jackson might call cramps. But I think at this point, you're looking in the future here, and he has a $13.7 million cap hit for next year, the highest for any running back in the league. Can't get out of the contract. We've talked about how they're going to need cap space to sign Dak Prescott and how the cap is going down next year. If Ezekiel Elliott doesn't bounce back and play like one of the best running backs in the league next year, he's going to be a big problem for the Cowboys in a number of ways.
So let me turn to my resident former Cowboy here, Marcus Spears, and ask the very simple question. Marcus, do the Cowboys have a Zeke Elliott problem?
Yeah, this year they do. But they have a lot of problems, G. But when you think about what Graz just said, Zeke was supposed to be the shining armor with everything that's transpired. He was supposed to overcome the offensive line. And I know we're asking for a tough situation for Zeke Elliott, but he was supposed to be the mainstay and the catalyst around all of the turmoil that's going on in that franchise right now, especially the attrition with injuries and things that have transpired from an offensive standpoint. And he's not living up to it. And it further pisses me off. Like, every time I can't help but think about what Graz just said. We talking about Zeke Elliott getting his money after going to Cabo, and Dak doesn't have his check. It is crazy to me that is transparent. And before Dak was injured, that was the only sign that the Cowboys may be able to be okay this year. Just the only sign. So I get it, and I know I'm emotional about it, but yes, they have a Zeke problem because Zeke has not looked like the highest paid back in the league, let alone we talking about the fumbles and a guy that's costing his team. It might be all right not to be as good because you got an offensive line and you're starting quarterback out and a lot of things are happening. But when you are costing your team games, when you are costing them opportunities, that's when you get into the area of, oh, we made a mistake.
It certainly does look that way right now. We've talked about it a lot. Maybe they did everything sort of backwards, and this is where they find themselves. More on this as we go. I got to get, I have to get to a break. I promise I'm coming.
What I really appreciate about Carson is I want him to have control. I want him to have the ability to get us in and out of bad plays. We've given him that freedom. So yesterday, our mindset going into the game was, just Jalen, just run the offense, right? We didn't give him a lot of freedom in this game.
Possible that you've given him too much freedom?
I don't think so. I think that goes with any quarterback around the league. I just don't think it's with Carson, but I think it's any starter that is play callers and play designers that you give these guys too much on their plate. And you got to be careful there. There is a fine line.
All right, so let me bring Dan Graziano in for the first time this morning. Graz, what are we hearing coming out of the building right now about the way they're looking at this thing short-term and long?
Short-term, look, it's going to be Hurts, as they announced yesterday, and it was not a hard decision. Obviously, they looked a lot better and a lot different on Sunday with Hurts than they have at any point recently with Wentz. So they're trying to win games. They're not out of it yet in the NFC East, and they wanted a spark, and he gave them one. So that's the short-term answer, and unless he's awful or gets injured, I would imagine he starts the rest of the year. Long-term, boy, oh boy, we have been talking about this for a while. Carson Wentz's contract does lock him in. Very difficult contract to escape, even via trade, because you have to get somebody to take on big money for a guy who's been struggling. A lot of questions going into the offseason about Wentz's future there, about Doug Peterson's future there. If everyone comes back next year, do you have a competition between Wentz and Hurts and then end up paying potentially Carson Wentz starter money to be your backup? A lot to sort out at that position for the Eagles, but right now, short term, they're trying to win games. They think Jalen Hurts gives them the best chance based on what they saw Sunday.
All right, Greg, let me come to you because you did some homework yesterday. Got a tape on this one as well. Show us what you saw from Jalen Hurts on Sunday and what you think it means.
Well, while the passing game was rather elementary, Jalen Hurts, what he provides with his legs and the presence he has in the backfield, he's the guy that gives them by far the best chance to win right now. Here's the zone read, okay? Notice the time, 2 minutes left in the second quarter. Zone read in the line of scrimmage backed up. The defensive end just squeezes ever so slightly, which gives Jalen the green light, and there he goes out the gate. 16-yard gain changes it. This is 13 seconds later, by the way. All right, 13 seconds later. Zone read the other way. Look at the presence it has from the linebackers. They both follow Jalen Hurts, take bad steps, which guess what? Opens up a huge hole. Play side, and Miles Sanders takes the distance. I love this play, too. This is pressure. They're going to try to heat up a young quarterback. Jalen Hurts says, you know what? I know Alshon Jeffrey is a big, strong guy that can't run past anyone. So what am I going to do? I'm going to buy a little time, and I'm going to throw a little jump ball so my big body, strong wide receiver can wall off a defender and potentially secure the touchdown on fourth down. Now, that was his best throw of the day. I didn't think he threw it great. They didn't ask him to. A lot of his throws were at or near the line of scrimmage, and it was very pedestrian. But his presence in the backfield and the way he uses his legs will make everyone else on the offense better at this point in time.
All right, so I always love to get you have a great knack of sort of encapsulating the entire situation. How would you put into your words what we have right now in Philadelphia with Wentz, with Hurts, and everything else?
Jalen Hurts is the fly in the ointment in Philly. And I know the conversation has been going on about what the future would look like, but the future don't have no damn staple right now. When you look at what Carson Wentz has done and how he's played, and then you put Jalen Hurts up against who was the #1 defense in the league, and he plays and performs at a high level and creates some things. Listen, G, this is the second time now we're having this conversation in Philly about a backup quarterback coming in and operating in this offense better since Carson Wentz MVP year. So there's an issue. And look, we can try to hide it, and we talk about the money, and that's justifiably so. We all know that when you have a player on your team that's making a crazy amount of money, the responsibility goes to seeing if he can play or recreate that. Everybody knows that. But I'm telling you right now, based on Jalen Hurts' history, the things that he's been through, the jobs that have been taken away from him, and the ability to bounce back, this is not going to be easy for Carson Wentz to just come back and immediately think he's going to be the starter once they get into the offseason. Jalen Hurts is literally planted in the conversation for being the Philadelphia Eagles starter moving forward. The fly in the ointment, G, and they did not plan on this happening.
I hear you. And listen, that figures to be the most interesting team to follow through the rest of the season and into the meaty part of the offseason. Meanwhile, Graziano, let's run the hurry up. There's a lot of other notes we need to get to, and let's start in Washington. What is the latest with Alex Smith?
Alex Smith injured his calf in Sunday's game. They're evaluating it. They've run tests on it. The key will be to see how much he can practice and how he moves around in practice. Obviously, his status for next weekend's game is in question until they see how the calf responds here in the next couple of days and how much he can do in practice. We're going to sound like a broken record here on these quarterback injury issues. Matthew Stafford of the Lions suffered an injury to his rib cage area on Sunday. Again, they're not concerned about fractures. The x-rays came back negative, but they don't know how much work he's going to be able to do in practice. Stafford, a guy who's played through a lot of pain and a lot of injury in his career. Obviously, you can't rule him out for this weekend, but they still, as we sit here right now, are not entirely sure. And then Drew Brees has missed the last 4 games for the New Orleans Saints with ribcage injuries of his own, 11 rib fractures as detailed by our Ed Werder. Brees is a guy that's eligible to come off of IR, was this past